Hello, everybody. Welcome to another first round match in the Fabul Gauntlet. We have in this match Gaming with a Wraith, a second season Highway to the Zeromus Zone participant versus relatively new runner Twisted Flax. This is the Swiss rounds, so at this point, our runners are trying to get as best win loss they can, qualify for the bracket stage. This being a random 5 seed, so our objective here, we don't know yet. We'll find out when we start. There are 5 random objectives. We will find out at the start. As soon as you complete all 5 objectives, you will get the crystal, and you now have the capability to transform Zeromus, and that is our end game. I am joined on commentary by Cyrac. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, Flurry. How are you?
Doing great. Looking forward to all these matches. We have had some absolute bangers. Oh my goodness, that first match was amazing. I can only hope that we get just as good a match here with a good amount of trolling rolled in here. But we'll see. We're looking forward to see what kind of objectives we get. What is one of your favorite objectives you'd be looking forward to seeing here?
I don't know about objectives in specific, but in my practice runs, I have had a lot of required mist dragons on the moon leading to stuff back down on Earth. So that tends to give you a hard time. So I would like to see that.
Oh, for sure. Anything for me, anything involving the giant being required, totally brings a part of the meta that as runners we kind of really haven't had to deal with it unless it was explicitly told. So hopefully, like a boss hunt that is on the giant, that would be great. Not so great for the runners.
No, that's true. And even when Giant was part of a specific objective for a race, you usually had a lot of glitches involved and foos available to you to sort of get through that huge chunk of HP at the element spot. And you're most of the time not going to have that in these flags. So it really does throw a nice little curveball. And that is one of the really interesting things the Fabul Gauntlet flags can do.
Yep, we are working on T standard, S standard, so that means our treasures are unweighted. There is no benefit to going to the treasury, going underground, go to the moon. Other than trap chests, the chests are going to contain more or less the same quality of content. Shops is a little bit different. One of the things that tends to make a difference when checking out a shops, and we'll go over it more once we find out what we have access to, but whether or not we get our favorite items, sirens, baka, and hourglasses, those are behind gated shops. So underground access, the Eblon shop is a pretty big deal. And we are off. Let's see who our beginning characters are. Can we get Tella to show up here? That'd be great. We have Porum and Rydia. What an offensive powerhouse duo this is.
Yeah. And a Legend Sword, which doesn't really do anything for you early game either. This is what I would call a potential start, because if you get the right stuff, these two can be really good. But if you don't get that right stuff, it can be really rough.
Yeah, we might see a pretty fair amount of shopping or treasure hunting here, hoping to find what would make these characters go. At least be able to contribute in the first couple fights, but let's see what objectives we have going on here. Giant, please. And
Lower Bill, Hobbs, Yang, White Spear, Super Cannon.
so this is actually a pretty good spread. We do have one character hunt. Hobbs is going to be gotten out right out of the way. Tower key is going to be required, but having 2 objectives stuck up in that tower is going to be pretty nice for the racers. Whether or not we see the runners decide to do maybe a half tower or something to that extent is going to be pretty interesting here. If you want to knock that out of the way. But as we're starting off right here, the first order of business is, what do I do with this team?
Yeah, you really want to get a hold of whether it's attack items or a heroine robe would be fantastic. Obviously, you really need something to be able to get some early damage out. Or even if you get a good summon at Hobbs, you still need the NP to be able to use it.
Well, Rose's mom has one piece of our puzzle. That is a self summon. That is absolutely fantastic. The only issue we're going to run into now is getting Rydia up to 25 MP. One of the more delightful bugs in this game is that when you cast Sylph, as long as you have 25 MP, you can cast it and it's not going to take any MP cost from your MP total. How that happens, I don't entirely know, but for the sake of what these runners need, that is awesome to find. The other nice thing we'd probably like to see would be a dancing dagger just to get past that very first fight. But if I'm the runners here, I don't necessarily, after seeing that self summon, I don't necessarily do a ton of looting here. I'd want to see who that Hobbs character is first.
Yeah, that's a nice grimoire summon, grimoire item, that they're pulling here. That should be enough to get you through one of the early fights on its own, as long as you don't get super unlucky with it.
I swear, every time I use grimoire, it's Odin. It's not random. It's always Odin. I don't know why.
I get Mist Dragon a lot, which generally is not good enough.
Now, one nice thing about catching some of these weapon shops, there are a few things that runners will want to keep in handy. We know we're going to see a Yang, so a Thunderclaw would be in order here. Elven Bow and Mute Arrows are also super handy. We did see Mute Arrows in the Mist shop, so that's going to be pretty nice. And that's more or less it. You'd like to find a Cursed Ring in an armor shop somewhere. Cursed Ring unlocks a lot of nice agility strats when we get there. But for now, you're seeing Flax and Gaming with a Wraith take pretty similar opening routes here. And finding a Rune Axe on the bottom is going to be pretty nice. If we find a Kane or Sid as that Hobbs character, we're pretty good to go for the early game.
Yeah. We got some decent bow and arrows available between the pickups and the mute arrows that were in the Mist weapon shop. As long as we can keep Rydia alive, that should be enough to be able to get her to Sylph.
Yeah, that very first fight can be tricky because 30 HP is not a whole lot, and that Hobbs spot, while it doesn't do a ton of physical attack, when you only gotta do 30, it's not that big of a deal. So you see, it looks like he's gonna try to rock the Blitz Whip and an Archer bow, some lit arrows. I would imagine that Grimoire we found in Mist is probably going to be the first thing being used, and hopefully get a lucky roll. We'll see if any of the runners decide to check Hobbs anyway, even though we found Sylph, and Gaming with the Wraith is going to answer that question right now.
Yeah, hoping for something with probably AoE here, potentially, that you'd be able to use later on in the game.
That's a pretty good one. Indra, aka Ruma, in other Final Fantasy games, that's a nice find. And hello on Mount Hobbs, we have the Wyvern. Enjoy this Mega Nuke.
Oof. That Kane would be a really nice pickup too, especially with that Rune Axe that we found earlier, if we did manage to get that Star Veil off.
Now, I think this is doable because you're starting off with Rydia at level 1. Kane starts at level 10 with a pretty good agility. If you lower the battle speed, put Rydia in the middle, I think Kane is going to get the Star Veil off. Let's see. I think you might still have form in the middle here.
Yeah, we'll have to see. You're right. With Rydia in the middle, at the very least, it should be doable. But even with battle speed down, that's enough.
Yep, Star Veil success. This should probably one-hit KO the Wyvern, and that is one pain in the butt boss that we no longer have to deal with for the rest of the seed. So well done here. Objective complete. I've been seeing a lot of Wyvern behind objectives lately here. Gaming with a Wraith is going to enter from the front side. Unfortunately, it's not going to be able to scope out who the boss is beforehand and might get caught unawares here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mega Nuke hurts. Doesn't matter where it is. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. It doesn't hurt in Bahamut. But Mega Nuke hurts. So
yeah.
Oh, he did take the save point. Okay, that's good thinking there. Take that save point there. You're going to save a little bit of walking time. But now, having done that Mount Hobbs, Rydia did not get levels here. But you got Kane, you got that Rune Axe. Antlion Cave should be just fine.
Yeah, the Kane should be more than enough to get through whatever's here, barring something. Trying to think, like even something like Plague or whatnot, Kane should be able to get through that, no problem.
As a nice find in the bottom left of the Antlion Cave, we do find an exit. This is one of the spots that you would traditionally like to use an exit for to save about 20-30 seconds of walkout time. And you can probably use it right now since you have a Forum and you're not likely to replace her right away. and she learns exit at a pretty early level. So that's
Right.
a nice 30-second find. I know those two chests on the left are sometimes chests that people will skip because it's a little bit out of the way. But that's pretty cool to find at Antlion Cave. The loot's been pretty nice so far.
Right. The one thing about that is that we do know that the character in the Baron Inn is Rosa. So while we probably, like you said, have Porum for a little while, she may wind up getting replaced. But I'm with you. 20, 30 seconds here. I mean, odds are you're not going to find a better chance to use it before you find them in shops anyway.
Yeah, whether and finding 3 mages to start, I wonder at what point in time the racers start to think about how early you think about your party composition for the eventual Z fight. I know we're 10 minutes in, so it may seem a little early to think about that, but ultimately that is the goal. And if you see 3 out of 4 mages already, you might be thinking 1 fighter of 4 mages and start to go reflect strats here. Well, we'll see. It's C standard, so everybody's going to be available somewhere, but sometimes those first few characters can kind of push you in that direction.
Absolutely, and I think that's very fair, especially considering we know we're going to have to get our hands on Yang at some point, and he's the best character you would want in all likelihood to be your giant damage sponge who just sits there with a star veil on him. So I think thinking along those lines and starting to get ready for reflect strats is definitely a way to go.
Yeah, Yang as a mage partner is absolutely fantastic for several reasons. HP pool, and he gets 28 agility at a super nice level. What else is nice is finding Evil Wall here at Antlion Cave. Antlion Cave has one of the worst physical attack attributes in the game, so it's going to hit everybody for a measly 1 damage. And one of the reasons this is nice is because Evil Wall is a dirty, rotten cheater. He does not care about your party's agility or rules of speed of any kind. He's just going to take turns whenever he wants. So finding this here is awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And getting these 2 of the potentially tougher bosses out of the pool early is great, because if we do wind up, well, we know we're going to be on the moon at some point, and you would like to have the best odds at finding the easier stuff up there if you can.
So no issue here. Kane with the rune axe is going to be nice. We looked like Flax went more of the physical route. Sylph, while is incredibly amazing and awesome to have early on, you do have to be a little careful in a race environment because it has one of the longest spell animations in the game. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be a lot if you're only losing like 3 or 5 seconds. But if you think about whenever you have those early Rydia Sylph seeds, how often you find yourself casting Sylph 30, 40, 50 times, that can add up. So it's one of those super minor things you can kind of work on. Well, we'll see. Having Kane I'd like to see Kane doing most of the action here with the rune axe. And it's a darkness crystal. What does that mean?
Yeah, though looks like Twisted Flax is immediately going to take it to the moon, and at least check out what the free character is. I haven't noticed anything like hourglasses or coffins that would make some sort of crazy moon dive doable, but checking the character here is a decent idea. It is gated behind a key item, so you could find yourself an edge or a foo here, which would be really nice.
Yeah, for sure. Finding edge or foo would absolutely unlock a large part of the scene. Also, that moon shop is one of those gated shops, so we could find hourglasses, Bacchae, sirens, all the fun toys can be there. So I'm in complete agreement with Flax here. Check the character. The earlier you can get those game-breaking items and characters, the better. Especially since Rydia and Porum are not, even with Sylph, are not exactly offensive powerhouses.
Interesting Ashura summon in the Fabul item shop there. Probably not going to happen with 2 white mages on the table already, but it is there if we wind up with a really tough hook boss or something where it might be useful.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's kind of nice to have, but then you find out sometimes that once it bites you in the butt once, Shura Summon does give your party a full heal 2/3 of the time. The other 1/3 of the time, it casts life on your entire party, which, while useful in very niche situations, when you need that heal and it gives you the life, it's just like a punch in the stomach. What is not a punch in the stomach is this boss fight at Fabul.
Might need a bit of a low roll to get through it. Just barely.
Oh, well, that's weird. It looked like he went to get his Cure 2, or maybe he just did a change and didn't have the Cure 2 queued up. But regardless, finding D Knight here is pretty nice. The mages currently may disagree, but only doing 50-60 damage. You just have to sit through 3 of them, and then he gives you his monologue about justice. Alternatively, had this been at Leviathan, we'd be looking at like 11, 12, 1300 damage per turn, and that would be a problem. So this is another potentially mean boss out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great in terms of the overall boss pool and what the runners can see later. It looks like we got a Sid on the moon. I mean, I'm a fan of early game Sid. He's got a decent amount of strength and damage sponge HP, but we're already kind of moving towards the spot where he's starting to lose a little bit of value.
Yeah, especially since we've already got a Kane who can kind of do everything that Sid can do and is capable of equipping better equipment. It does add a little bit of redundancy to the party. Now, if we find like a really good spear, then you can move that rune axe over to Sid, and we're talking a little bit more value here. I did see Flax throw a poison axe on Sid, and poison axe is often used for money because while its attack stat is very good, its hit rate is very poor and its damage is going to be all over the place.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the one thing it does do is it does hit the giant racial weakness, correct?
That's a good point, and that's especially pertinent with we haven't figured out whether or not this is going to be a hook seat or not. And one of the bigger challenges with how the shops have been ordered is that we used to always check every shop, and you see this is usually around the stage after you get Fabul and Hobbs and Antlion done that you do the little shopping world tour and you check all the shops. We used to always find hourglasses all over the place, and that ogre fight that we would use to buff up for the hook boss was super free. It is not super free if you don't have an hourglass, and getting a poison axe and a rune axe is going to make that much easier.
Absolutely. There are some runners who actually do like to make the play into Antlion Castle as well sometimes. Because there is another ogre fight in there, and you can potentially find something really nice in the trap chests. I don't know if either of our runners today like to do that, but it's another option that's on the table.
Yeah, that one's a little tricky. If you find yourself getting like an early hourglass and you get the option of actually having a tier 7 loot and a character that can benefit from it, then it kind of makes sense, but it can be super time consuming. Now, it looks like Flax is not going to ordeals and is instead going to do Baron Inn. As we saw at the beginning, that first boss was the Kaipo guards, which is super free. Second boss is Asura, and we're going to have a pretty good time here because we've got a rune axe.
But to say, there's the switch onto Sid with the rune axe coming out, so this should go fairly well, although these counterattacks will hurt in this spot.
Yeah, this spot, relative to where it is in the game, the physical damage hurts a lot. I wouldn't even be surprised to see Flax res his other characters just to give her another target. On the other side, Gaming with Awraith decided to go up to Ordeals immediately and is rewarded by finding good old D-Mist as our first boss fight.
Yeah, Ordeals is a bit of a weird check in that it's a pretty time-consuming just because you have 3 boss fights you have to go through. And with that many boss fights in a row, your odds of finding a boss fight you really don't want to deal with is higher. But the flip side of that is that your odds of finding something like a D-Mist up here are higher as well.
Yeah, usually it's one of those spots where if we find ourselves in a boss hunt and we have to look for a specific boss to take out, getting those 3 up there is really nice. And then the second part is because if you've watched enough of these races with Random 5, you tend to want to make the long game play. So ordeals kind of pays off more often than not, but we don't see any bosses here. And I think that's kind of why Flax decided to go immediately to Baron, hopefully get that Rosa, although Asura's having other ideas about this.
Yeah, there it is. It looked like actually leaving Sid alone as the lone person alive was really nice there, because Ashura didn't have enough firepower to take Sid out in the back, and the reflected heals were just healing him to full health. So that wound up working out fairly nicely.
Yeah, that's definitely the example of the back row glitch really coming in handy. If you combine being able to get full attack from the back row and being able to equip full armor in the back, that Sid's going to be able to tank a hit or two, and that's all that Flax needed to get past it. For the second Ordeals boss, we do see Mom Bomb, which, while kind of annoying here, isn't too bad. I think this might be one of the spots, though, where the explode might hurt a little more than Gaming with a Wraith might expect.
Yeah, this is, of all the nice things this party can do, having a large HP pool is not one of them. So it could be a little bit dangerous.
And I think that's why we see him taking the precaution of keeping Kane in the back row, because what will happen is he'll explode and then morph into 6 bombs, and all 6 of them are going to likely get a turn before the rest of our team gets a turn. So let's see how much damage this explode does. Yeah, this is that spot where it hurts a ton. So yeah, this Grimoire needs to hit, and well, he's not going to get the chance.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of the catch-22 I was talking about here, because this is not a fight you particularly want with this group, because keeping your mages just aren't going to survive that, and you're going to have to get very lucky to have Kane have enough health to be able to get that Grimoire off.
Yeah, not taking the safety save means we get Demist Redux, part 2, everyone's favorite boss to find here, but I am sure Gaming with a Wraith does not want to see a replay of this. Let's see if Flax decides to take a save after this, because at this point, at least as far as content cleared, Flax has started to get a little bit of a lead here. He's done Baron and has pulled even on Ordeals here.
Yeah, absolutely. Got the character off the moon as well, so definitely a little bit of a lead here. The Sid play actually could wind up being very, very pertinent here, because he is almost certainly going to survive that explosion. So as long as he can get that good Grimoire roll off, that could be the difference between having to do this once or multiple times.
Yeah, he's got Sid in the front row, which is just fine. The physical attack in that second Ordeal spot isn't too bad. It'll hurt, but I'm pretty sure Sid should end up with like 500 HP or so after the fight, and can tank one of them. Now, if that Grimoire ends up being Chocobo, and you have to sit through too many rounds of all 6 of those bombs attacking, that may be an issue. Now, if Flax picked up a Zeus Rage or something like that, you throw that in there, then that will handle that. But I'm not sure they picked that up, because the runners have kind of hit the same spots here, and we didn't see Gaming with a Wraith go to that. He went straight to the Grimoire.
Yeah. I can't recall seeing one myself either, so that would be my suspicion too, yeah.
One nice thing Flax is doing here is making use of an item that is often passed up in shops when you see it, and that's Vampires. Vampires, while expensive, in the early game, having any character be able to do around 500 to 600 damage is super useful. And for a boss like this, where if you have to do too many cycles, she's turning to mist, and then you have to wait. It's what feels like a year and a day. So that's good on Flax for picking up those vampires and making use of them here in the spot.
Yeah, they're a great pickup for an early low damage party like this. Which, I mean, even with the self, that I think this party qualifies. So it certainly makes sense to me to pick them up.
All right, let's see if it. Okay. So Rydia survived. We should at least get to see this Grimoire So what Gaming with the Wraith did, timing that Sylph cast just as the explode happened, is probably going to win him this fight here. So that's very well done.
Yeah, very nice piece of setup there. And there's the Titan roll, so that should be all she wrote.
Yep. This Titan lets them feel the weight of the land, and that with that. So we'll see within the third boss. Not going to be a problem here. Only about 1200 HP. Its physical stats are equivalent to that of a cheese wheel. It's not really going to hurt you that much. So this is a spot where you'd actually like to see a boss that's really hard, and you wouldn't want to see a boss that's pretty costly, like Dr. Luge wants to tell you all about. Balnab, go get him.
Yeah, exactly. No Gauntlet, no Balnab. You'd love to see Kainatsu or something off the table.
Now this doesn't have to be access to underground, but it likely is. It's the Pan. Okay, so Pan's a nice find here, because when we do get underground, that's going to give us a whole bunch of spots here, or a whole bunch of key items to check. Pale Dim as the boss to find, perfectly okay. Pale Dim can be annoying to find early if you find yourself rocking only equipment that is elemental based, and you're with a team with like Horum, Palom, and Yang, and you're like, well, nothing hurts him because he loves the elements. But in this case, not a problem here. Flax with a little bit of trouble. I think that explode might have caught him a little unawares here, but a well-timed jump from Kane takes that. So our runners are pretty much neck and neck. And I believe they both did Fabul already. So
we don't have to underground access off that Mist Dragon check, I think.
Yep, I think that's pretty much it. So we're going to find out very quickly if it's Hook Seed, if it's a Magma Key, or it could be the Harp and Zot, and we just have more fun on the overworld.
Yeah, absolutely. And neither... I was gonna say that Magnus could be a bit tough for this party, but with the Kane and the Sid should be fine. And Zot could be potentially, just because some of those bosses have higher stats than you would think by playing through the vanilla game, but I would expect we're just gonna get our underground access, and I really hope it's the Hook, I'm not gonna lie.
That would be nice. Nari, being an awesome tracker, pointing out that Flax does not have the pigtail, therefore did not go to Fabul, so could actually end up saving a little bit of time here by doing the Rivers McCown special of one trip to Fabul to take care of all your fabulous needs. Wraith is going to go ahead and check that Moon character, is going to get a Sid and think, boy, that would have been nice to have 2 fights ago. And then I would imagine Flax is going to check the D-Mist first, and then if that ends up being the Magma Key, then go do all your Pan-related activities. If it has the Hook, then you kind of have a decision there of, do you leave that sitting there with possibly being Magma Key access, or do you just take the Hook and hope for efficiency?
I 100% would be taking the Hook, but I've probably done more unnecessary hooks than just about anybody, so maybe don't listen to me.
It's one of those spots where like you're not getting that much more experience anyway, so I mean, it's a pretty good chunk for early in the game. It's about 5k, but it's not like changing the outcome of your Hook fight. So, but it could also depend on like who we see as the boss. If you see a Lunar Sparkle, I might just exit out and say, nah, I'll come back later. If you see like Dark Imps or something like that, you're like, okay, sure, let's go right now.
Yeah, if you show up there, and especially with this team, if you find something that hits relatively hard physically, like if you find a Biogen or an Antlion or something, that would be probably a hard nope, at least until the game confirms for you have to.
Alright, so it looks like Flax is going to check. Yeah, going to check to see what we get from Mist Dragon here. And yeah, Flax did loot here already, I believe, so it's probably going to head right over there. Do we have the Hook, Magma Key, or Harp would be really nice to see here. Aww.
Yeah, no fun, but that does open up underground access, so we have the Pan, so I'm sure that will be, other than maybe the free item in Feymarch, but even then, I would want to do the rounds first and try to set myself up to at least take a poke at the Feymarch bosses if they don't look too bad.
Yeah, I completely agree, and this is great routing on Flax's part. Is only going to have to go to Fabul once, is likely going to drop that Magma Key down, finds Cure 3s, which, while nice enough on their own, if we do end up having a mage-heavy team, and you end up doing some kind of reflex strats, Cure 3s are amazing to find. So that's a good find there. I think we're going to see Flax head immediately to the pan. Wraith is going to show us what's in the moon shop, and it's just an Odin and some various things that we don't really need to buy. So Agart shop stacked. That was kind of hard to say. And moon shop, not so much.
Yeah. The silk webs here are really, really nice, especially since you're going to have like the Feymarch bosses coming up here, the Dwarf Castle fights. If you wind up with something relatively difficult, getting the silk webs up is amazing because haste and slow are extremely slow and berserk is what I meant to say, but are extremely nice in FF4.
Now it looks like Wraith is going to give us some extra information here. Is going to check the Bahamut spot. I don't think there's the other reason you would come down here would be to initiate a gold dragon fight. Finds Odin, which is not a boss fight we could take on at this point in time. Bahamut spot has, I believe, tied for the highest physical attack in the game at around, I want to say 170 times 12 or something like that. It's a lot, and then yeah, that's really all that matters at this point.
Yeah.
A big weakness to lightning helps there, and I believe his Zantetsuken attack, or just Odin as he likes to call it, scales off his magic attack, which in this spot is actually not that bad. But given where our party levels are at this moment, I don't think so.
No, certainly very doable later, especially with this setup where we're going to have access to multiple people with Blink, but not something you want to look at now for sure.
I do like the idea of getting the information if it happened to be something free, especially, finding like a water hag or something like that. Maybe you could pull it off. It's good information to have while you're there. And I believe he had a source of exit with Porum anyway, so you're not costing that much time. Does get his magma key. I think did he not? Might not have done Baron yet, so might see that done first.
Yep, no Rosa, so you're definitely going to take a look at Baron. Meanwhile, Flax is going to head down to Feymarch after doing the initial pass through to Yang, and we'll get to see what's in the free chest down here and maybe take a look at the bosses.
Yeah, this is one of those spots where sometimes you would like to say, hey, I only want to trip down here, but the counter to that becomes the fact that the free item is free and the not free item are behind two incredibly difficult bosses. And if you decide to put that off until you can only do those bosses, you're essentially saying, I'm going to do this last. And it's a good thing he didn't do that, because he finds a white spear, which is super nice to find. It is the highest attacking power spear in the game. So Kane is going to be rocking some nice endgame gear and is going to get the information to see who these bosses are. I don't think we're going to see the characters actually take them on. But finding out who they are is pretty nice, and is also going to get to check this shop and hopefully find some of the items. In this case, we find Bacchae, which are amazing to find.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. That I mentioned or just mentioned, Berserk is very, very good in this game. It vastly increases the damage your physical fighters can do. And the other nice thing, it looks like not even saving. So we are going to take a look at what's down here, but not try it. And I like this too because these spots are very fast and hit very hard. Knowing potentially what you have to set yourself up for is really nice. Like knowing that Golbez is there.
Ha, ha, ha. That may not... Well, you know what? Golbez in that spot is actually not too bad. If you can get those Starvels off, and at this point we don't really have the spells to do so. Usually you would use Pig, or if you really wanted to, you can go into battle and cast Mute on yourself. But if you had something like a Cursed Ring, the magic spot is so high that he's actually going to do so much damage to himself that is kind of doable. Now, we haven't seen a Cursed Ring yet, and Rydia, who was our previous anchor answer, has gotten plenty of levels. So we don't have any easy way to get our characters to RA1, and we still have all those pan stuffs to check. So it's not something that we're going to be taking down right now, but it's not the worst spot to find Golbez. The best Golbez is the one you see coming.
Yes, absolutely. They can put some value in potentially hanging on to a lower level character we find later. And the other spot was either Rubicante or Elements. This party doesn't yet have access to good elemental magic, although Rydia will get there eventually. So again, it's just another knowing the tools you need to have to be able to get through those locations.
Yeah, if that's elements, it's not the trouble with that spot is its physical attack is also horrendously high. So you kind of have to get like a stack of illusions to even think about taking that on early. But if it's elements, and like we said, if you get strong elemental magic, a couple bounced fire 3s handles that relatively quickly. But Flax is showing us the value of only having to go to Fabul once. It's going to take on this D Knight. That D Knight's going to tickle them a little bit. That'll be that. And then it's going to end up at the top of one of the towers. Just going to walk over, hand over the pan, get a whole bunch of key items, and then decide where to go from there.
Yeah, it'll give you a really, really nice look of the land and being able to figure out exactly what you want to be able to do for sure.
Now, in the absence of any kind of direction, I would assume that the next spot would likely be Dwarf Castle. What becomes interesting is if we don't find an obvious direction after that, do our runners inclined to do a half tower and just take on the tower boss, knowing that it's an objective, or holding on and waiting to get that tower key and then taking on the super cannon? Because if tower key is vanilla and it's at the top, the former strategy pretty much guarantees a full clear.
Yeah, I actually, for that exact reason, I would very much be doing the half tower here. Not only that, but if you pull package or something off that spot, which is your required Yang, the amount of running around you would potentially save yourself is humongous by comparison to the few minutes you invest in going up to do it.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting question that I think we're going to see our runners faced with that decision pretty soon. At this point, we still have Dwarf Castle on the table, and that's a character recruitment spot. So that's probably going to come first. Never mind. That's not a question we're going to be faced with, because Sheila 2 has the tower key. So that's 2 objectives wide open. All we really need now is where's Yang?
Yeah, that literally is all we're down to. So we're just looking for... If he shows up in Dwarf Castle, this could be an extremely fast seed.
So I guess the next meta question that our runners are really going to be here is, like, at this point, they're worried about get powered up just to be able to take on the stuff from the underground. But it's a shame Antidale is racing. I wish he was in chat, because this would be right out of his playbook. You have a character recruitment spot open. It's the Giant. It's a lot of HP, it's a lot of time, but it's a character, and it's a character recruitment spot that's open right now. And while 10-15 minutes taking on the Giant sounds like a lot of time, if you're putting off the Giant, you're saying it's behind one of the other key items. We don't know when and where we're going to see those key items. And there have been plenty of acings, won and lost, deciding, are you going to make that Giant gamble or are you not? So Dwarf Castle could just make it all moot, but if we don't see that there, and especially if we find a character who is capable of doing a D-Machine or a Mac Giant grind, it's a question that we gotta ask.
Yeah, that last point is the really interesting one, is if we come across a Fu or a Tello or somebody who makes that one of those grinds more viable, it becomes a little more interesting, because otherwise you're basically going up there hoping you get to one of the bosses that you can cheese. If you can go up there and grind first, you open that up to basically giving yourself the opportunity to kill anything that's up there. And that feels like a better play to me.
Man, it is a shame this was not a hook seed, because did you see who the Rubicante boss was? It was Kainazo.
Yeah.
Man, we
Yeah.
all
Yeah. Kainatsu, for those who don't know, Kainatsu and Hook is something that every FF4FE runner has to deal with at some point or another, and it is no fun and requires a lot of knowledge and effort to be able to get through it quickly.
Yeah, it is like a rite of passage. But on the other hand, fighting Milon Z here is one of the bosses you like to see if you have to take out a chunk of HP, because he has a lot of weaknesses. He's weak to cure magic, he's weak to fire, and you wouldn't think by looking at him, but he is tagged with flying. So while immune to quake, that white spear is going to just absolutely destroy him, because spears do exploit that weakness too.
Yeah, that was the developer's answer to making him immune to earth magic, but not necessarily absorb it. That's what they went with. Interesting choice.
Yeah, and you would think you would have just given him like a low magic power or something like that. I don't know. But regardless, finding Milonzi here isn't too bad. The only downside is that this spot, especially for where our party is at, the physical attack is pretty decent here. But finding Cure 3s is going to give you, if you decide to spend the money, and we see Flax using that strategy right now, it's a good 1,600 damage. The problem is, like, he's putting out a lot of damage right here, and Porum is not doing that many favors as an anchor at this point, so he's pretty fast. So while there are a lot of weaknesses to exploit, this fight you can see it can get a little rough. Those HP totals are not very high.
Yeah, this is sort of this boss spot is, I guess, honestly, the only other one that's kind of semi-close is the element spot, which it just cranks it up to 11. But it's a decent amount of speed and a decent amount of overall HP, because it's the pool of all the Dr. Luge fights combined, which can make for some kind of interesting-ish fights and some different strategies compared to a lot of the other spots that don't really work that way. So yeah, Milon Z, like you said, to be able to get through that HP, having all those weaknesses available is nice. Flip side is, if you have a relatively weaker team against physical attacks like this, it can be tough to survive it.
Yeah, and we do see Flax end up taking a reset. And we do see some like interesting divergence here, is in that Gaming with a Wraith, even having those two completable objectives, is doing Dwarf Castle first. And this is likely because while the tower does give us 2 items and could end up leading to Yang, it is not a character recruitment spot, whereas Dwarf Castle is a guaranteed character. And it's actually looting Dwarf Castle, you don't see it that often, but it's already paid off, because there's a Sorcerer Robe in there. A Sorcerer Robe is fantastic defense, one of the few gear that actually boosts your black magic. Black shirt, I'm looking at you. And if no other reason, it's what Fu starts with, and Fu is awesome. So just finding that, I think, has already made this worth it, because I'm pretty sure Flax would love to have some physical defense on those pages right now.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't be shocked if that was one of the main reasons why he was doing it in the first place. Aside from being able to sell things for money, we haven't found a ton of defensive gear for the mages yet, which makes them really, really vulnerable, especially now that you're underground. You're going to start running into the spots that hit a lot harder.
And with S standard, you generally find yourself spending a lot more money, because those items that we really, really wanted, got for super low prices in 0.3, have had a huge price hike. And I believe those were Hourglass 2s I saw.
Indeed.
Those are 6,000 a pop. I mean, you can buy a house with a stack of Hourglass 2s. They are not cheap at all. So makes sense that you would want to go up there, get as much loot as you can to sell, but as a bonus, finding that Sorcerer Robe is super useful, and it's going to, I agree with this, go back and save first. You spent a lot of time looting and shopping. Let's not have to do that again in case we run into something rude here.
So we get to take a look at what's here at the dwarf spot, and that is a Yang. shouldn't be too terrible here, although the physical attacks will tickle a little bit against the mage team. But all of that looting and the defensive gear that came up for the mages could actually pay off almost immediately.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to pay off. This spot, if you've got like nothing but standard gear, this spot can and will one-shot your mages. Not likely to happen here. I'm sure Gaming with a Wraith is thinking, I got Yang, kind of, right? Give me that objective, please.
Yeah.
This would be nice to have a Cecil here. The one quirk with this particular boss fight is that after his second kick, if Cecil thwacks him with anything, he says, ouch, and then decides to peace out of the fight. But even with some of that gear, you see these characters are really low leveled, and they're all getting one-hit KO'd. So does reset, and let's see if he decides to take that on first, or might actually make the trip into the tower.
Yeah, looks like he's gonna bail out. Probably trying to find something that he can use those hourglasses on for levels, if I had to guess.
Or maybe he didn't turn in his pan stuff, because one of those items was the Luca key, and I don't see the Luca key on his tracker, so he might not have actually turned in his pan, his pan-related activities. So I think that he's going to do that first and maybe see if there's an alternative to, other than serving up his mages to an angry karate man. And RPG Limit Break, thank you for the raid. Hope you guys had an outstanding match before. We've got a pretty good one here.
Absolutely. I suppose we should give the quick rundown of what we did here. So we've got a start with a Legend Sword, Porum Rydia. Didn't find an awful lot of interest in the first couple of checks. Our Ordeals climb gave us a required Mist Dragon to get our Magma Key to go underground. And both of our runners have sort of done the initial underground pass and are looking at what they want to do next. We got Twisted Flax taking on Millenzy at the top of Lower Babel.
Yeah, this seed so far has been pretty nice. Poidrak was pretty nice with our runners thus far. The closest near troll we had was Rubicant it was Knazo at the Rubicante spot, but it was not a hook seed, sadly. We have already seen such hits as Wyvern at Hobbs, DKC, and Evil Wall. So there's a lot of the meaner bosses out of the way, but there are still some juicy stuff remaining, and it looks like Flax was able to get past the tower key fight. I didn't see what it gave him, but
looks like it was the spoon.
Okay, so it's a key item. That's really about all we can say. Good for darting, but we haven't seen a ninja since 2018, so I don't know what to do with that. So it's going to walk out and head out to see what the tower key gave us. But even if it doesn't happen to have any kind of key item requirement, it's 2 objectives down. And now we're just looking for Yang. And the question is going to be, do you take the giant early? I want to see an early giant. I just want to see it.
I don't blame you. And there has not been a really great way to level yet, so you do have those grinds up there potentially if you can find the characters or the items to make them work. We haven't gotten through the Dwarf Castle spot yet, so I would certainly expect our runners to get through that. The question then from there is, you have to go to the moon and check out that White Spear altar. Do you go up there, do that, check the ribbon spot that's probably right there, see if you come across one of the character recruitment items, or do you just go straight to the giant because that's the only other guaranteed character recruitment you have left?
Yeah, that's a very good point. We've seen all of our gated shops but one, and one little quirk as Flax finds a sleeping bard, and sadly Spoonflap not on, so is going to pass on that. One quirk about the Avalon shop is guaranteed to have 2 of the higher tier items. Now, sure seems like half the time I check their elixirs, but if we have sirens, that's where it's going to be. We've checked all the other gated shops, so finding the hook is going to be pretty pertinent here. especially if we run into that problem like you've been saying, we don't have a good way to level up our party, and we've had some bosses take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Actually, now that we talk about this, the Luca key is kind of an interesting find that we've got access to, not only as a key item check, but I mean, nobody likes grinding on doors, but it's an option.
Oh, I despise them. I loathe door grinding. I swore off it in 2018 and never do it again. Now, one nice thing I really like Gaming with the Wraith is doing here, we said, top tier, you're not going to get any top tier items in loot. That does not count trap chests. Now, you might think, who wants to do trap chests? They take so much time. But these are just alerts. And alerts are very one-shottable, especially if you exploit one of their two weaknesses. One of them being thunder, the other being hammers. And, well, he doesn't need to do that. It looks like he's just going with the white spear. But if you have an earth hammer, Sid is going to one-hit KO those alerts, and it makes for a pretty efficient check. And if you find something like an Excalibur or a Crystal Sword, or even at this point a Stardust Rod would be super useful, it can pay off. So I like to see that kind of divergence in just runner strategies, sometimes thinking that's one of the ways to get your party faster. If you can't do it by levels, you can do it by equipment. And I do see he's got Sid rocking an Earth Hammer. So hopefully Wraith remembers next time, hit the alert with the hammer. He doesn't like it.
Looks like he's throwing a set of lit arrows on Rosa as well, which could also help. Although Rosa being in the center slot is a little bit awkward.
Now, Flax is going to have a little bit of an easier time with this Yang fight than Gaming with a Wraith did, but he still hits hard. And that kick is no joke. It was doing more than DKC did at Fabul, and he ain't gonna tell you about no justice. So this might wipe like his party right here. Man, that's one heck of a kick. Do we check the Luca key, maybe?
I'm trying to think. We've run across some of the really tough bosses in the spots you want to find them in. We have not really run across anything hourglassable that I can think of.
No, we actually haven't seen anything that would be categorized that I can think of as free. Now this Luca spot is not, it's a tougher spot to do than that doll spot. There's more HP. The physical attack is actually about even or so. It might be a little stronger. But the terrorizing thing about that spot is that it is fast, and its magic stat is through the roof. So if you ever had the enjoyment of, say, Magus Sisters at the Evil Wall spot, you know how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually wondering, Gaming with the Wraith has been in this fight for a little while and is focusing on the Stoneman. I'm wondering if this is like a little mini grind here is what this intention is.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, that is exactly what he's doing here. He's doing like a miniature farm here. It's kind of like the Mac Giant grind, only not. Anytime I see a strategy that I haven't seen before, I am all for it. So I'm kind of interested to see how much experience he gets out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if this is the difference between getting through that Yang fight and getting your character Yang, it's a fantastic play.
And it's great awareness to even think about that as a solution. One of the difficulties that newer players have when you're doing free enterprise is you don't have the innate knowledge of bosses' weaknesses and whatnot. And see, he gets 10k. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 3 or 4 levels, and more importantly, getting your white mages to berserk, especially with a white spear, is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. That was 2 to 5 levels on everybody. That is a significant amount of HP compared to the amount of damage that Yang kick is doing. 100%.
And that berserk is totally going to pay off when he sees who the boss here is, because Milon Z and White Spear, they do not go together very well.
Well, not for Milon Z anyway. Yeah.
No. So he's going to be cranking out probably in the neighborhood of 2,000 damage a hit, and it's going to make that fight go. It's almost going to make up the time itself for grinding. So I'm super excited to see how that goes. And then on Flax's side is actually taking on the Luca key, is doing some treasure hunting. So to that end is kind of committing, not just that being the play, but if you find something there, you're going to be warping out. And like we had said before, we haven't seen a whole lot of great defensive items other than that Dwarven Tower, which had Wizard Robes and Sorcerer Robes. So let's see what the key item and boss is here. It may also be something that we can save scum out, which while we'd like to see the experience, sometimes just getting that out of your mind and saying I'm done with the sealed cave is worth it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But I think Flax is doing this looting with the understanding that he has the intention of killing whatever is here.
So let's see. The item is a Baron key. That's another character spot, so you're definitely not turning that down. But the real question becomes, who's the boss here? It's not just Tony Danza. Don't be MAGA sisters. Oh, it's free!
Yeah, this is going to wind up being an amazing play. You can just sit here and do nothing and pick up your free experience, and you've gotten yourself a much lower level character check that you can take a look at, and more experience to get you through Dwarf Castle.
The only downside, and he's still going to get through this fight, those Fire 2s, oh wow, okay, even in this spot, those Fire 2s just tickled. Alright, so yeah, this spot is they chuck Fire 2s and Fire 1s, and then after X amount of turns, they become conscious. I don't know, I kind of think things that are conscious are shooting Fire 2s at me, that's what they are. But then they just decide to peace out of the fight. Sometimes, because that is timed at around an hour and a half, if you can take out the king spot, the queen will automatically peace out after on the very next turn. But given the damage capability of our team at this point, just cure, wait for them to do their thing. But this as a way of both getting experience, getting a key item that from a spot that you wouldn't think this party would normally be able to handle is a fantastic gamble from Flax. And let's see if this Baron key has the Yang. Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean it's a game-winning play if that's the case. I mean, anything can always happen, obviously, but it certainly is going to. It's game-changing if it winds up being that. Even if it's not, doesn't lead directly to Yang, the extra experience and the fact that you've done a key item check without needing to invest that time elsewhere is a really nice time saver as well.
And at this point, there's a lot of characters that are still left that are going to unlock certain things. For example, if we find Tella or we find Fu, that's a grind in and of itself. And at that point, the moon becomes far less of a daunting task. If you find Edge, we did, I believe, get, or maybe I'm thinking of a previous race, some Edge weapons, but finding Edge would be great. If we're only one key item away from an X-Cal, so a Cecil wouldn't necessarily hurt here either. So even if it doesn't have Yang, the other characters remaining have something to offer this team that, quite frankly, we haven't really seen yet. Right? The team's offensive power has been an issue for the past 20 minutes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And speaking of this play, I did notice that Twisted did pull a ninja sword out of here. So Edge, between that and the ability to basically delete one boss with that spoon, would be a fantastic pickup if we don't wind up finding our required Yang.
That's right. The Masamune was the previous race where I was listening to Invent tell us that we should always sell Masamune. But in this case, if we do find an Edge, great. Where you been? He never seems to show up in Seed's Eye play, but regardless, let's see. I would imagine we're gonna head straight to Baron, and let's see if Baron ends up being Baron.
Just gonna move right along, and it's gonna be the summon spot, the Odin summon spot here. Once this is finished, is kind of interesting check as well, because we found so few of those free bosses. the King Queen Evelyn one is the first one we've really seen, and so they're gonna have to be hiding somewhere. We know we have got moon bosses that we can take. We have at least one we're gonna have to take out. So it could be interesting to see whether they take that dip and what they do with it too.
One thing I would be interested to see if Flax decides to do it. We haven't found a curse ring yet. Sometimes I would like to check that Baron armor shop just in case, because if you haven't found a curse ring yet and it happens to be from a spot that requires an item that you just made a really amazing play to get, that could be a pretty big advantage here. Especially since we spent like 5 minutes talking about what all these good grinds could happen, but that's only could. We still don't really have a good grinding option, and finding a cursed ring here could be a huge find to just unlock the kind of strats that allows some of these bosses to be cheesable.
Absolutely, and we know about that Golbez, which, as you mentioned, the only trick is getting the Star Veil off. As long as you can do that, it's fine, but you have to be able to do that, and the Cursed Ring is a fantastic way to be able to get that done.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, Rydia should know Piggy by now. So if you find a Cursed Ring, that Golbez at Ashura is not an issue. And it's also one of my favorite strats to come from Free Enterprise, to watch an entire team, either pigs or minis or muted, all go into Golbez with these status elements and be like, this is why you're going to lose.
Piggy Pally strats. Well, no Pally in this case, obviously, but you get the idea.
Alright, so safety save here at Baron, just in case. Nothing makes you feel... Well, we've already seen Wyvern and we've seen Golbez. Those are usually the two of the ruder Baron bosses, because you don't often see people take the save after the Bygone spot. I know I've been caught sometimes not healing, and then Ogo shows up and says, "Oh, you don't have half your hit points? Enjoy the save point."
Yeah.
But at this one, it's probably not going to happen, because we finally get a boss we can use an hourglass on. Although I'm not sure if Flax made the check for it. Now I'm looking through his items. So now we do have another weakness that we can exploit on here. We'll see if Flax figures that out. These are considered mages. They may not look magely to me, but a Mute Dagger or Rune Axe does exploit a weakness on here. Would also like to see... Well, we don't really have that much black magic to take advantage of them. If you had a Mute Bell, that would work, because they will counter physical attacks with size and magic attacks with Piggy, and both would be pretty brutal for whatever, if it hits the right person, or I guess the wrong person.
Right. There's not a ton of physical attack damage at this spot, oddly enough, even though it's a vanilla boss that does nothing but hit you physically. So maybe a touch slow, just having to sit through spell animations or whatnot, but shouldn't be any issue actually getting through the boss.
Fun point, this boss is the only reason why I buy one Mute Bell every time I see it. Just in case you find these guys on...
I bring it up. I've brought it up a few times when I've been on commentary, but one of my favorite seeds was a seed of the week from ages and ages ago, where J items were off and they were the boss at CPU. A lot of people forfeited that seed.
Ooh, yeah, that would be kind of, especially... Ooh, yeah, that could be kind of mean if we didn't have the right strats. So let's see who's deciding to take over Baron today. It's either the Water Hag or it's the Gauntlet. Our runners are hoping for Water Hag. Nope. Hey, we have... Sit down, relax. It's time for a Gauntlet fight.
16 dudes and monsters on one throne.
Because we haven't seen enough of those cards, we need more of them in our... So here we go. This is Alt Gauntlet, so the difference between what you may have previously seen from the Gauntlet, which was your standard Soldier General and all their friends. With Alt Gauntlet, it takes the encounters from the encounter table in the area that you're in, with some exceptions. For example, Odin Alt Gauntlet is not going to give us watery underway thing. It's going to give us summon monsters forgot what that place is called. Barren Waterway. Yeah, we'll go with that. In this case, the Baron King does give us the Barren Waterway spots, but it can come up with some pretty brutal spots. If you've ever experienced Alt Gauntlet at Ogo, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and if we take a look at Gaming with the Wraith side, he has gotten through that Yang at Dwarf Castle, found a Tella as the character, and the other blue robe, the one you'd like to see, Water Hag is being the second boss here, so this will be nice and free. That Tella is a super interesting pickup, though.
Oh, we could see some serious divergence because we've both done ordeals. Tella knows weak. Gaming with a Wraith can immediately do a D-Machine grind and tackle either the moon bosses or the giant. Whereas and he might, because he sees this, it may give him the idea of to just push that Luca key off to the side. I have so much more things that I can do now. Whereas Flax is going to follow this Luca key to pretty much wherever it leads, and it was a Baron, which is already one of the more time-expensive checks at around 4 to 5 minutes. It was a Baron with an extra gauntlet fight on the side, so this is about a 10-15 minute commitment from Flax, and if it doesn't pay off, while it was an amazing play to get this party at the time, it could put him like 15 minutes behind.
Yep, this could very, very easily decide the race, what winds up happening here between what Gaming decides to do and what character comes off this Baron Key check from Twisted Flax, because we'll have to see what Gaming with the Wraith decides to do. There are people who like to clear out everything they can, and it looks like Gaming with the Wraith is one of them. He is going to go clear out this Luca key before he delves any further.
Divergence, however I was trying to say. Yeah, they're going to go the same way. So, and hey, what's that character? I don't see him very often. There's Edge. So, or is it Sid? He's thinking about it. Rydia. Okay, so the reason he's getting rid of Rydia here is because Rydia takes quite a long time to learn her more useful spells. Now, we've seen Bokkai, so usually you would keep a second White Mage to have a second source of Zerk. I think if we see another character, that Porum is probably the first character to go. But Flax does have a Ninja Sword, so that Edge is absolutely staying in the party. So now let's see what the key item is that we get.
Yep, still could be very, very important if we pull Package in particular off of here, or the Earth Crystal, of course.
Yeah, I would imagine Flax is going to follow this chain wherever it goes, even if it's the harp, which is not okay. So this is really nice. Not only because Flax made this play super early, but that Earth Crystal gives him 2 extra character spots. And we do have a Murasame. I wasn't tripping out. Okay, cool. Is also going to be able to back row glitch that Edge. So that's going to be super nice in case we find a CPU. But those 2 character spots in Earth Crystal, that's, I believe, the only spots we have left after that would be Hook, Package, and the Giant.
Yeah, that's right. We're still missing a dupe, Fu, and I'm blanking on who our third is.
We haven't seen Palom.
That's right.
And boy, it'd be pretty funny if the dupe is also Edward. Duplicate Ed. I saw it in one of the races today where it was an Edward Tella start, thank you Poydrak, and then the first boss in Baron Inn was also Edward, and you see something like that and you're just like, don't be a hook seed, please.
Yeah.
Alright, so Wraith finds the Evelyn fight, so it's not going to take him very long either. Giving it that's the Baron key, I would expect Wraith to immediately head to Baron and pretty much follow in Flax's footsteps. Flax is going to head to Zot. Sometimes you will see the treasury checked out in here. Because we are on an unweighted seed T standard, the treasury is not likely to be the mythical trove of all things we ever wanted. that it is in other flag settings,
Yeah.
might just head on in there. And it also looked like hadn't quite checked the shops, so you're going to find Cure 2s in, well, not going to need exits because Rosa's going to learn it after Zot. But we could find something useful here. Well, Thor Rage, we know where Odin is, so...
I don't think... Does Flax know where Odin is? I don't know if Flax does.
That's right, good call. That was... Gaming with the Wraith was checked out the Odin spot, so he doesn't know, so picking those up, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, going straight to this Earth Crystal makes a ton of sense. It's a 40% chance that you're going to wind up with the Yang that you want, and basically the seed is basically done from there. Although, the thing we've been talking about for a while, not any super great grind options for this team, really.
No, we haven't. And that's, in some cases, that might almost put the runners at ease when you feel like there's not always a ton of options to take. You know, sometimes if a seed's super wide open and you have like 5 or 6 different ways, and you could say, hey, I could have done a D-Machine grind 20 minutes in, or I could have done it an hour and a half in. Sometimes that stress can kind of get you. This seed has ended up being, thus far, kind of linear. The only time we've really had a chance to kind of escape from it would be picking up Tella at the Dwarf Castle, but even then, Gaming with a Wraith got the Tella and is following the same spots that Flax has made. So at this point, it's been linear enough that it's also allowed our runners to get 10 key items before going to the moon, which is super nice because now you're going to get double experience, and those boss spots, should we end up needing to do them, could be a fantastic experience.
Absolutely. So let's play devil's advocate. Let's say we get Yang right off this Earth Crystal check. What are you doing for a grind? Are you just killing trap chests and bosses on the moon? I think that's where I would lean. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, especially if Gaming with the Wraith finds it and he's already got Tella, I think we've found hourglasses as well. So while it would be a little time consuming here, it makes a little more sense for Gaming with a Wraith to just decide to do the Gold Dragon encounters. Even failing that, when you have 10 key items, no more than 4 or 5 fights from a D-Machine grind will get the job done there. So at this point, if we end up finding instant go mode, it's probably better for Gaming with a Wraith because we found Tella. But at the same time, if, you know, we're also very likely to find a Fu here, just because we don't have a lot of characters left. So finding a Fu up there was going to kind of answer that question for itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. I kind of hope we don't, because I wanted interesting grinding options as opposed to boring old ones. But yeah, you're right. There's a pretty decent chance that we wind up with a Fu up here. I just kind of hope we don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping for Palom and Duplicate Edward. That would be pretty neat. First boss is Luge. That's actually one of the better ones we can find here, while it is a little time consuming. This spot has slightly inordinately high HP. I believe it's right around 9,000. But if you divide that by 4, our party can almost 1 or 2 shot at, and especially sit with an Earth Hammer. And hey, look, there is our last objective.
Absolutely. So super nice find there for Twisted Flax. In go mode, as long as they're comfortable with whatever grind options available to them, we'll have to take a look and see what they decide to do. And I guess we'll probably have to see what the second character is, which will, as you said, answer a lot of those questions as well. Palom doesn't really do much.
No, and if we had a good grind option, you probably want to take Palom here, but we really don't. And it does beg the question, does Flax actually consider doing Dwarf Castle? Because at this point, you only have 3 characters left. You have Tella, you have Fu, and you have whatever the duplicate is. So there's a 2 out of 3 chance that Dwarf Castle character is going to have a way of making grinding that isn't going to seem like pulling teeth. So I do wonder if that's a play that Flax decides to make, but at this point, all we need really is the White Spear altar that's been open the entire game. So let's see what we get here. Milan, fight here. This is going to be less trivial. Sometimes you might want to wipe out the zombies with Edge's Flame, but even then, like the damage here is going to be not of any consequence whatsoever. So this is going to be more or less a free fight.
I mean, dude, Millen's lit ones are almost never going to be as powerful as they are here. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, there is. If you let him constantly, especially if you're doing like RA1 Zerg strats, and then you're eating a bunch of lit ones from, say, Lukaki spot, and you kind of have to worry about that there. And this spot does have pretty high magic spot. It is one of the spots where even a higher level party, if our good friend Golby was here, he's going to one-hit KO your party with those spells. But at this point, I don't think it's going to be... It's more time-consuming than anything else, because you have to sit through a bunch of counters.
Yeah, you're right, it is. I mean, you can see that Lit 1 usually doesn't hit as hard as it is here, but it's still not hitting particularly hard. But the boss spots where the bosses actually use spell-based status effects, in order to make sure that they hit, they have a ridiculous amount of magic power, which is why I said, but like you can say, Lit 1 is just such a weak spell, it usually doesn't make any kind of difference.
Yeah, I used to think early game, if I did enough bluffs, that Palam's Lit 1 might crack 200 damage when not a weakness, but no, not really.
Yeah.
Lit 1 is not fantastic. So that boss is down. We're going to see what the key item is here. Would probably like to see a hook or a package, just because at that point then we'd be guaranteed to get one of those characters there. It's an adamant, so we can open up Kokol's shop, but that doesn't really get us that much.
I mean, don't know, it's something like apples or something could potentially reduce the amount of leveling you need to do.
Yeah,
it's a long shot.
Yeah, I think apples... Alright, so he's going to go ahead and do Dwarf Castle and get the character here. It's going to end up being a very solid play, because it's Tella, and Tella's awesome and lets you do a D-Machine, or even if you don't want to do a D-Machine and you just want to take random... In fact, that might be a choice there too, because we get the crystal immediately after completing the last objective. You might choose to do random encounters in front of the save point there, hope to get the gold and silver dragon encounter there, and then you do the white spear fight, and then you just walk into Zeromus. Yeah. Either one works.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Check the moon bosses on your way down so that you can hourglass and take out anything that happens to be free, and then do that last grind right in front of the save point. I think makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, that right next to the white spear spot is the vanilla ribbon spot, and that will give us 200k XP. And at this point, our characters can all use that.
Absolutely, I do like the play of turning the adamant and Excal in from here as well. I think there's enough that can potentially help you there. Between the apples, the possibility that you get sirens, and the possibility that you get something like ribbons that gives you that extra magic defense that you're more confident going in at lower levels, all of that stuff can wind up helping you quite a bit in terms of your overall experience. Plus, for Twisted, it gets you an Excal to throw, which isn't terrible either.
Yeah, and that's especially true given that our lack of terribly good grind options. If they do decide to take on the white spear fight, you're more... And just do random encounters on the moon, you're more inclined to say, I'm going to go in with this Rosa as low a level as I possibly can, so you're probably going to be going in around like 45 or so. Whereas if you do a D-Machine grind, you can just tell yourself, oh, I'll just do one more D-Machine, and now I'm at level 53, let's throw a party. So finding something like that, like especially good defensive gear, like a white robe, or a ribbon, like you said, or protect ring, might make that worth it there. So we'll see if either of our runners decide to do that. Now, doing this Dwarf Castle is going to allow Gaming with the Wraith to catch up a little bit here, since he's already finished that. So we're actually going to see our runners converge pretty closely here.
Yeah, Flax actually turning the Tella down, which is interesting.
Ooh, I don't entirely agree with that, but there are options that do not. Like you had mentioned, if you decide we have a Luca key already, so if you want to do door grind, that is 70k per. So about 5 or 6 of those, and at double, with double XP, you're at least in okay shape. But might just be betting on we have hourglasses, we have pretty good gear at this point. It might make more sense to have that second white mage for safety and then just take on the encounters normally and deal damage through traditional means, which in this case would just be Zerk, Edge, and go, and then let the hourglasses do the work.
Yeah. It just Sid's not really offering a lot to this party right now. I mean, if you Zerk him, he does chew up turns, but he's not really going to be providing a ton. We haven't found any of the really high-end level stuff. Like, we haven't found double Artemis or anything like that, where he's actually going to give really meaningful damage on the final fight. So even if you wanted the white mages, I don't know if I would have kept Sid around and just taken that Tela myself.
Yeah, and now we see Flax going to buy hourglasses. So that definitely kind of clues into maybe that's the thought process there, because otherwise hourglasses are expensive and you probably want to spend that on something else. Would really like to find a cursed ring with this party because it looks like we're going to go with 3 Zerkers here, and his edge is pretty decked out in endgame gear, although I'd imagine Wraith's is pretty similarly decked out as well. So being able to take advantage of RA1 Zerk strats would be really useful here, but I don't think we found a cursed ring yet.
No, I certainly don't recall seeing one. And the runners have checked a couple of shops, but they haven't really dove and looked for it either. But who knows? It could wind up, being on one of those boss turn-ins. Could wind up finding one still, because you're right. It would make a huge difference.
All right, so Flax is our first person heading to the moon at just shy of an hour 19. We could see who the moon character is. Oh no, never mind. We saw the moon character like an hour ago. What am I thinking? Is likely going to head down and check to see what the bosses are. There's still a lot this could be that could make this very interesting.
Yeah, gonna take the sleep. Do you check Paladin before you head down and see if it's a free fight?
No, I do not. I would immediately head to the bottom if I saw it. If the bosses were free, great. If they're not with this party and I've got hourglasses, I probably just would try to roll gold and silver dragons and go from there.
Yeah, no, I probably agree with you. It wouldn't be an awful choice. I mean, you could just drop the safety save outside and just reset out if it's nothing particularly good, but yeah, I think in terms of your most of the time, like you said, just going straight after those dragon fights is probably going to be your best option.
Yeah, I mean, it is 110, or I believe it's around 110 XP or so. So it's not like it's a bad, like you said, it's not a bad idea. Okay. It looks like Flax is opening up some lunar chest. Might be taking on some lunar trap chest bosses here.
Depending on which ones you get. I mean, if you get the ones that have the warlocks and the carries, I mean, that's fantastic. The behemoths, probably less worth your time. Yeah.
Yeah, behemoths are going to be super tricky here because we don't have like a super hard-hitting party. Even worse would be Bimmy and Jimmy. But no, okay, we get the warlock and carry fight right off the bat. So this is going to be a good, if life glitched properly, probably around 130, 140k XP. I would personally stop after this and go save, because if we see, the dragon fights, that's gonna be problematic. And this is a very nice experience boon. Flax making all the right plays thus far. And yeah, this will get our party a good 5 or 6 levels or so.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there, losing that hourglass too to Porum, getting one shot by that fire too, but gets the second one off and should be good from here to be able to finish this off once he gets his party members back up.
Yeah, I cannot stand it when the enemies become self-aware and they only attack party members who have an item queued up. Sure seems to happen a lot more often than you'd think.
I can't. I don't know. This is why I don't buy lottery tickets, because I can't even win the 1 in 5 lottery in this game, let alone the 1 in whatever million. So yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah, unfortunately, these don't quite see a life glitch going on, so it's gonna be a little less experience than we could potentially get here. But even without that, at double XP, I'm pretty sure we're coming close to cracking 6 digits on experience here. So this will still be pretty nice.
Looks like we're gonna get at least the 1 life glitch off on the second warlock here. I think they're just a little bit concerned about getting the party back up, which was why the first 2 were missed, unfortunately.
Yeah, makes sense. And okay, so Gaming with the Wraith is going to take advantage of Tella, is going to do a D machine grind. The way this grind usually works is that we have a very nicely curated encounter table to allow us to turn encounters on at the save point inside the giant, and intentionally, or know at least have a pretty good idea of when the encounter that has a searcher and 2 beamers. Take out the 2 beamers, and then that searcher is going to summon a D machine. D machine is only going to do fire, which is an HP based attack, provided that you do not physically attack it and it survives. Now, it does have a weakness to weak, so you cast weak on it and then you attack it, it's done, and then you do a life glitch on it and you've killed 2 of them. And since we have double XP, you have essentially killed 4 of them. So at this point, with 10 key items, it only takes about 4 or 5 or so to get you into the level 50 range. So Tella's going to pay off in a big way here.
I didn't notice, did he have any ethers at all? I didn't notice any in his inventory, but he may have them and I missed them.
I'm not sure. That I would imagine so. Even if he decided to not take any ethers, he would still, he'd be able to get 2 off, because then the 3rd week would have to be used on the searcher. I would imagine so. And even failing that, we do have the ability to cast, since the searcher will wait, requires you to be do an attack for the D machine to be summoned. We do have a couple of sources for Tella to cast Psych on,
right,
and get some magic from there. Another benefit is that when a character is 5 levels or more below the median party level, that character will get double experience, and that will stack with our 10 key item double experience. So that Palom there, who's sitting at level 10, after about 4 or 5 D machines, is going high 50s to low 60s if you calculate it like I do and always overshoot.
Yeah, the one thing to note though is Tella is not in the center slot in the party. Tella's accuracy is not great, and missing a weak and following up with a physical attack that triggers the counter is basically the way that this can go poorly. So hopefully, for Gaming with the Wraith's sake, that we don't see that.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. If you've ever had the pleasure of watching Tella miss a life spell, how did you do that? You'll know that his accuracy with magic spells is not great, and if you put him in the middle, whoever's in the middle spot does get a bonus to their magic and physical accuracy, for that matter. That's very pertinent here, because if you miss and then you cue a physical attack, the physical attack is going to hurt. And if you don't cue a physical attack, well, now you get to eat 3 or 4 more rounds of fire, and no party members can survive 5 rounds of fire because it's an HP attack. So yeah, it could be a problem. We do see on Flax's side he is taking on the elements fight. Not too bad here, and plenty of weaknesses to exploit. The issue usually at this boss on the moon is that if the magic spot is high enough, when Rubicante's spot shows up, he starts casting Fire 3 and Glare on your entire party, and that can cause a wipe. Or past that, we got to Val and Kainazo, who have thunder weaknesses. So that fight's going to be taken care of. And I believe this was the White Spear fight. So
Yes.
This is going to be all 5 objectives done for Flax is going to get his crystal.
And so we'll see what key item we pull here, although it doesn't particularly matter. This is Rat Tail, and then the crystal will show up. So official go mode at about 126.58.
Yep, crystal hypes in chat. We have our first crystal. Now Flax still has the issue of getting his party up to the point of being Zeromus ready. We're close. Low 40s. You'd like to get at least 5 more levels. I think at this point, random encounters is the way to go. But man, this could end up being super close here.
Yeah, I would peek the ribbon spot because if it's free, it's 200,000 experience.
Yep.
But
it might be just deciding to take on Trap Chest. As long as Gaming with Awraith's grind doesn't go south here with a missed week, this could end up going right down to the wire.
Absolutely. I don't recall exactly what the numbers on the Wyvern spot are for experience-wise as well, but I recall that one's also pretty decent.
Yeah, I think it's a little over 100k and gets... Okay, so Warlock and Defossil, while not the best experience, is not double dragons. So this is going to be, I want to say, around 70 to 80k. Defossil does have a weakness to Holy, and we have a White Spear, so it's going to hate that. More importantly, they can be Hourglassed, so you can take your time. Probably want to kill the Warlock first, because I don't believe you can do the life glitch on Defossil because it is undead.
Right, yeah. Edge might be a pal here, though, and get it first. Nope, not quite.
Yeah, and is going to find out right now that you cannot revive that which is already dead. Well, let's see how much experience we get. Okay, so 64k. It's going to get about a level or 2. Some work to do.
Yep.
Ninja Sword would be nice, but I think we've already got our ninja gear taken care of. One nice benefit that can come from this strat. Oh no! It's Double Dragon 2 The Revenge. Oh dear. And this fight is just as hard as that game was. Oh, this could be tough.
Yeah, this could be really tough. I don't know what kind of armor he's rocking, how hard that heat ray is gonna hurt if that comes out, but yeah, there you go. They don't mess around.
Now, I did see a Moonveil in the image. This might not be a bad time to burn that and, kind of hope for the best. Like you mentioned, Heat Ray is a thing. As soon as one of those dragons gets left alone, Heat Ray does become one of the actions that the dragons can take. So, and there's quite a bit of HP here to deal with. The benefit is that if we get this double dragon fight done with, we're going to see about, I want to say, 200 and something experience, if not 300. This is a lot of experience here. So
Absolutely.
If this fight is done and taken care of, we are Zeromus ready.
So Demon Machine grind is done for Gaming with the Wraith. Very well done. 720k experience, pulled the party into the high 40s, low 50s-ish. Should be good to go from here, especially considering there's going to be a little bit of top-up experience from the White Spear Altar as well.
Yep, and Talum probably got a very juicy slingshot out of that, so he is absolutely here. So Gaming with a Wraith is now going to head in and take on the elements. Should not be any problem whatsoever, and head immediately into Zeromus.
Yeah, this race could actually wind up being extremely close, depending on when Twisted Flax feels comfortable, and if he continues to pull random trap chests, how lucky does he get?
I think that might be the end here, because down. And they do hit twice. Now you still have the Moonveil there. This is one of those fights where having Dragoon gear absolutely. Oh, you lifed the wrong person. or one of those Dragoon gear items really helps a bit because you see Kane in the front row only taking about 200 damage. Has to take the reset. Okay. I like your idea of checking out that ribbon boss.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Lots of free bosses on the table. So this is one of them. This is perfect.
Could not ask for a much better boss fight here. The only downside would be I'm not sure how many Star Veils he picked up. But otherwise, in fact, I think given the magic... Oh no, the magic power of this spot is actually really low, if I remember correct. It's the plague spot that's pretty high. So, yeah, like at this point, this boss is only going to Mega Nuke. You can put up walls to deal with that, deal as much damage as you can, and that's going to be 200k XP. It's going to put him right around the point where you'd feel comfortable. Rosa should be sitting at right around 2k. It'll be a little dicey, but I think it'll be doable.
Absolutely. I think if it was me, I think I would be taking this experience and going at this point. As long as Rosa gets to around that 2k mark, just have to, roll the dice a little bit that the Zeromus Mega Nukes don't hit you too hard.
Yep. And this is being a one-on-one match. There is no metagame guessing. Having an idea of where everybody else might be based on whether or not you've seen a few dots here and there. You don't find out you've lost until you've lost.
Right, exactly.
So whether or not you decide to go in, sometimes you just gotta say, can I do it? Is it possible? Then you just gotta go in.
The only real divergence that was available in this seed was you could theoretically have cleared out a lot of the moon earlier before you did everything on the ground, but you had a really low level party with not a ton of damage output. It doesn't seem like particularly likely that your opponent is going to do that. Odds are you and your opponent have done a lot of the same things, and so even if you have a lead, which Flax did coming up here, you're probably fairly confident it's not going to be a large one.
Yeah, totally, and especially it's one of those spots where having a character like Yang was pretty difficult. Gate the other character almost kind of helps you out, because if Tella had been available earlier, now we're talking there could be huge divergence here. I do see a little bit of an issue here to where the walls ran out around the latest Mega Nuke, so some of the characters got down. And since we're doing this as an XP grind, you want all those characters up. I don't think we're going to get them all up. As long as Rosa survives, like that's the super important part.
Yeah, Rosa and Edge are the two important people to get this experience here for sure. Yeah.
If Porum doesn't get it, it's not the end of the world. You'd like to have an tier 4, but you're not counting on her surviving. Rosa goes down. If Rosa doesn't get this experience, do you take a reset here? Oh, let's see what the items we get are. Not much.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would be tempted to take the reset here, but...
Well, we're gonna take the experience. Let's see if we decide to do random encounter. We go back to one of the other trap chest boss, or maybe check the Ogo spot. We still have some other freebies on the table. We've seen a few of them, but there's still dark imps to be on the table, and that would be a fantastic boss to find in the Ogo spot. And we're so close. We're just about there.
Yeah, this might be gonna go check the Ogo spot, I think. But yeah, we've got, like I said, Dark Imps. We have Kaipo guards are still out there. There's a couple other ones too that are escaping me right now that I know that we haven't seen. So there are options.
Now, Gaming with the Wraith showing us the power of the D Machine grind. Now, getting that grind done with and over as soon as you can, has taken out that White Sphere spot and is now going to be heading immediately to Zeromus and is going to answer one of the burning questions that always need to be answered in every free enterprise seed. What might that be?
That would be, whose butt are we gonna kick tonight?
Let's see who the Zeromus sprite is that we're going to see here. Flax does find a relatively boss and an hourglassable boss in the dolls, but the experience from this spot is actually cut in almost half, I believe, because you don't encounter the big Calbrina dolls. So
Right.
we'll get some experience here, but it's not going to be quite enough. Now, as far as anchoring situation, because we don't have a cursed ring on, I believe Tella is going to be sitting at around 20 agility or so. And given where Rose's level is, it's probably not that big of an issue. But you could see this Zeromus is going to be pretty fast. And while thankful we have Bacchae, stuff like the combo platter of Meteor and Big Bang is absolutely on the table. And man, Zeromus just cannot stop shaking.
Yeah, this is that's always a bit troublesome when you're the runner sitting here and you're just like, oh man, I still don't get a turn, huh? It's it's a little nerve wracking. Definitely want to get that silk web off, but this is not going to be particularly free.
Yeah, it's almost at the point where if Edge was close to, you can see he got a big bang off before we got a big bang off before we even got a silk web. This is going to be a full power big bang and then a counter nuke afterward. We might see a reset right here. Yeah. So this is one where if Edge is sitting at because we have a Murasame that's -5 agility, if Edge is sitting right around 42, might want to make him the anchor there.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm assuming he's gonna take a look at his agilities here before he decides to go. Oh, perhaps not. Okay.
Oh, Palom. He's gonna take a boss fight to try to, because Palom is very close to 28. I don't think he learns it until somewhere in the 60s or so. Unlike Porum, who I think gets 28 agility at 57. The reason why we consider 28 agility such a big deal, and while explaining Final Fantasy IV agility is a podcast in and of itself, generally the best way to say is your party's speed relative to Zeromus gets slower and slower until you hit a multiple of 14. And when you hit that multiple of 14, then Zeromus's relative agility goes up to 2 or 3 or 4. But if you do it just underneath it, his relative agility becomes, instead of 2, 1.99 or 1.98. And this always rounds down. So the difference between 1.0 and 1.9 is nothing for Zeromus, but it makes your party a lot slower. So that's why you want to be just above those breakpoints of 28, 42, 56, so on and so forth. And Tella at that level was, I want to say, right around 21 or 22. And Palom is probably right around 27 or 28. So you can see him take a boss fight here and probably check Palom's experience to see if he hits 28 agility. Let's see, status, checks Tella, 38, 26, not quite there. I didn't see what Edge's was. Rose's should be close. Rose's at 26 as well. I didn't see what Edge's is in at this level, but I want to say it's just over 42. Oh, it's taking off the Murasame. There you go. All right, taking off the Murasame. I knew he was around 42 natural on this. So the Murasame being -5 underneath that breakpoint, de-equipping the Murasame does put him at just over 42, which is one of those breakpoints. Now you might think, I want to use that Murasame in a fight. You can switch the equipment, and while his attack stats will update, the agility is set basically once that transformation hits. So that will make this fight far more manageable.
Speaking of, though, Twisted Flax is going to Zeromus, folks.
Oh, we have a side-by-side.
This is potentially pretty much synced Zeromus's, so this could be a very hype finish.
Oh man, now Flax's party is definitely significantly lower leveled here. We'll see if Flax decides to try to make sure to what's the word? Nerf as many of the big bangs as possible. But as Rosa's sitting at 1600 HP, that's typically Porum's domain.
Yeah, this is gonna be tough. Even if Rosa would have to be decked out with the best top end MDef to be able to survive an unnerfed Big Bang at this point. So you'd have to assume that Twisted is going to be going for nerfing Big Bangs, which even if you know what you're doing is very tough to do consistently.
Yeah, I personally don't like to do any kind of strats that rely on nerfing unless I know that my party's at is at relative agility 1. Pulling it off with Zeromus at relative agility 2 is pretty tricky to do, even for a more experienced runner. So we'll see how this. It may not even get a Silk Web off in time, and that would be disastrous for this runner. Oof. Yeah, this one's gonna hurt.
Yeah, the very first Big Bang, I don't recall the exact number. The very first Big Bang has a ton of power behind it if you don't nerf it.
Yeah, I think the first one is one of the 9 hitters. I believe it is. So when you the Big Bangs will have 2 varying strengths based on how many quote unquote hits they're doing, and it's for I believe a maximum of 300 times 9 hits at its worst. So that would give you like a maximum of 2700. Now you very rarely see a Big Bang actually hit you for 2700, but go in with base Rosa and 2400 and watch it happen. On the other hand, sometimes you get the other ones, which are 8-hit Big Bangs, and those are the ones that you'll see, I believe, 2nd and 3rd, and that's where you sometimes get your Palom with 1900 HP surviving a Big Bang. But that first one, I believe, is a big hitter, and that's why you saw it do so much damage.
Right. And it's really tough, especially on these Berserker parties, because your MDef is partially based on your wisdom and your will, which is why a lot of the times you can have, a 2200 Rosa and a 2400 Edge, and it's the 2400 Edge who winds up biting it.
Yeah, Big Bangs, they can break your heart sometimes, especially when you go in with a lower level party. Now, Gaming with a Wraith looks like got everything in order, really, as long as you get into the rhythm of getting the Cure 4s off. And we found Bokkai relatively early, so we don't have to worry about doing Zerk. Is going to try to expedite things a little bit by having Palom cast Nuke, especially since Palom is going to survive is more than likely going to survive a fully powered Big Bang at 2400. And you'd like to do that first to at least get about 40,000 damage done or so. At around 40,000 damage, he does shift into his next phase, and sometimes you can time that in such a way that he shakes, he's about to Big Bang, and he phase changes, and then you don't actually have to deal with that Big Bang, and you get even more damage done by your Zerkers and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of the hybrid strats in general here. Like you almost certainly could just Berserk Edge and Kane and just let Rosa heal your way through this. In all likelihood, you would wind up killing Zeromus before Rosa runs out of MP or is seriously in danger of doing that. But having this Palom is hitting for essentially quad 9s, I think, on a lot of these nukes as well. So that definitely speeds up your overall damage here, and it gives Tellus something to do since he's casting Wall.
Yeah, it's hard to turn down 10k. I don't think it becomes an actual time loss optimizing the Z fight unless you're using a cursed ring, or RA1 strats, in which case your Zerkers are going to get like 2 or 3 turns per. At that point, it might make sense to just let the Zerkers do their thing. Without it, and since we're sitting at 42 agility, I think you just get as much damage as you can.
Yeah, I definitely think getting the nuke series is great. And We can see Twisted going back for some more levels here, wants Rosa to be able, at least Rosa, to be able to survive some big bangs. Unfortunately, does run into a behemoth. This is... He's decently set up for it with 3 physical fighters, but you really don't want Sid hitting this. So this is going to be a little bit slow, which was unfortunately always going to be the issue with pulling the trap chess.
Yeah, this might not be a bad idea to burn the Dart of the Moon or even a Moon Veil. We do have a question in chat. Is there a way to tell whether or not you get a phase shift? It's kind of an intuition thing. Sometimes you will notice a little bit of a pause before you expect a character to take a turn, and sometimes that pause can kind of clue you into something happen. But it's more along the lines of you expect a shake to happen after you've done, X amount of runs and you're used to kind of how the flow of the fight goes. That when you haven't seen a shake when you expect it, it's safe to assume that a phase switch would happen. If you're running like RA1 strats and your Zerkers are taking turns constantly, you can tell when that pause happens.
Yeah, you can definitely feel that.
Yeah,
pause.
with this running a 42 agility edge, it's not really something you're going to notice, especially if you lower the battle speed. We got rocks on Wraith's side, so these were about 10k away. This nuke right here might just get the job done.
There it is.
Alright, we got ourselves a flash. So Gaming with the Wraith does finish in first place with a time of 1 hour, 48 minutes, and 1 second. Well done. There are plenty of seeds we've been seeing that have been 2 hours plus. So this is a very solid time, and Wraith played this really well, showing off his experience, and that is now 1-0 in the Swiss rounds.
Yeah, very, very nice race. I'm sure we will get Gaming with a Wraith in to speak with us here shortly. Speaking of, GG.
Thank you. That was a thing.
So, your initial thoughts on this, on all the fun things this seed threw at you?
Mom Bomb is mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
She kind of set me behind the whole time, and I'm like sitting there. I'm like, wow, thanks Mom Bomb for the explosion.
Yeah,
Thanks
that
for
was a
playing.
tricky one. She's just fast enough to have all 6 of those bombs pile on and that explode. There's a lot more damage in that spot than you're sometimes ready for. But really,
Yeah,
other than that, you did a good job handling pretty much everything the seed threw at you.
Yeah, it was basically I consider that like the seed of every audible I had to take, because of I was perpetually behind like 3 levels on everybody because of deaths here and deaths there in every fight. Nobody lived through the entire time. So when I got down underground, I'm like, I got punched in the face by karate, and I'm like, oh, that ain't happening. All right, new plan. So then I just kept going to new plan, and then new plan turned into, okay, I'm just gonna go. I have nothing available to do for like XP because there were no sirens unless they were in Evelyn. And I'm like, I need a little XP, so I went into the tower. I'm like, I can just do a chest or 2, get a little XP, go up, hit the cannon, and then go up and hopefully do the boss. So that was that.
Yeah, that was definitely. I've never seen somebody make use of those searchers to just get experience to manage that fight, and it totally ended up paying off because it made that fight far more manageable.
Yeah.
The one place where I think the two of you guys could have had a lot of divergence was that you were the first person to pick up Tella, and prior to that point, you guys didn't really have a good option to get levels. Was doing an early D machine and possibly going to the moon on your mind?
I thought about it, but so with these seeds, I've gotten like, because of the stuff that I had like as objectives I'm talking about, I knew I had the white spear where I don't need anything. the White Spear pedestal was available, and I'm like, okay, I need items for characters, and I'm like, I'm a little behind still for XP. I wouldn't mind going in to do the D machine with a little bit more, just in case something wonky happens and somebody gets slapped by a dragon. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna attempt to dig for characters, and that was when I decided, okay, go to Baron Key. Baron got me the Earth Crystal. I'm like, well, that's 2 characters. Might as well go dive it. So that was 2 more characters. I'm like, that was Yang, and I'm like, okay, I have Tella. I'm good. Let's go.
And that was the big difference between the two, was that you decided to do a D machine, whereas Flax went and has tried to do trap chest to get experience, but ran into the double red dragon fight, and that's a thing.
Yeah, that's not good. I know from doing Catalyte that when you don't really have anything else available and you're going and doing those trap chests and you find those dragons, it's not good. It's never good.
It's a rough run, yeah. So you're sitting at 1-0. You will very likely be playing against somebody else who is 1-0 for your second fight. Any thoughts on your next match or anything else about the seed?
No, I mean, like I said, it was perpetually behind, and then the trying to catch it up, and it worked out, I guess. So yeah, I don't have good race to Flax. Was fun.
Yeah, you guys were neck and neck for pretty much the entire way. A little bit of divergence here and there, but by and large, you guys came together and were both in the Z fight at the same time. So yeah, you guys put on a great show.
Yeah, absolutely. Your choice of grinding options were the difference in the race. So GG to you. Those audibles were masterfully done.
Oh, thank you.
Alright, so looks like we got Flax is going to be, after taking on a fight here and there, is going to be heading to the Z with a little more levels here, so we'll see how this goes for him.
Alright, I'm hopping out. Thank you guys for doing a restream. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody running this. Have a great night.
You bet, man. Thank you. You have a good night, too.
Thanks again.
Alright, I didn't quite see what his Rose's level was looking at here, but I would imagine it's a little better having done an extra moon boss and one more trap chest.
Yeah, should be in a much better spot. 2100 should all but the highest of Big Bang rolls should be safe at that point.
Yeah, my only concern here is agility here. Porum gets 28 agility at, I believe, 56 or 57, and at this HP she's probably sitting at high 40s, so this is going to be a very fast Zeromus.
Yes. That is a concern. Sid in the middle might have been a better option if Edge hasn't hit 42 at this point.
Yeah, I think at this point Edge is just under 42. Sid is probably the way to go. But we'll see. If we have Bokkai, so really, if you just roll Bokkais and Cure 4s, in theory, as long as you just don't take a nasty Big Bang, you should be okay.
Yep. And this demonstrates why I'm a huge fan of ninja hats. Because the mages like to sit around 25, 26 agility at the levels that you would like to be able to go to Zeromus to. So that +3 agility to push you over that 28 threshold, hugely helpful.
For sure. That free enterprise is the one thing that makes you acutely aware of any and all equipment that adjusts your agility, because it's so important.
Yes. That was a large Big Bang. Rosa just barely survived that. That doesn't bode particularly well. I hope things turn out okay.
I think we're gonna be okay for the first few rounds of this fight. Edge might have a little bit of a survivability problem, but we got past the first Big Bang. The others aren't gonna hit quite as hard. Or my two concerns I'd have for this fight right now is because we're likely to see a lot of big bangs. Rosa's MP could become an issue here, although I believe there's an elixir in the inventory. The other thing I'm concerned about is that we may run out of Baccae here. I don't think we bought more than 10, and that's good for the first 3 black holes, but if this ends up being a long, protracted fight, that it could really bog down. So having the stuff to dart may end up being the difference here.
Yeah, absolutely. Darting is going to wind up being huge when the berserks fall off. Doesn't even look like Sid is getting berserked at all, which makes sense because he's not hitting as hard, but that does mean that the whole clogging the queue thing, that Sid's not really participating in that.
Yeah, it looks like he's using Sid to chuck Cure 3s to kind of fill the holes. Cure 4 at this level is probably only going to do 1100 or so, and that's not quite keeping up with the big bangs, just on its own. So Rosa will have to take possibly 2 turns curing here. MP is going to be an issue if the fight goes on too long. We see the first big bang, but if you're only zerking 2 characters, that does make 10 Baccae go a little longer on the fight, but you're still going to see quite a bit of big bangs here.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a war of attrition here. We'll have to see how it plays out.
The number to keep a look at is how much damage is Rosa taking, so she goes down here. That's the other reason I think we're seeing Sid not get zerked, is in case that happens. The problem here becomes that Gargamus over here is so fast that you may not have time to get both a life and some form of heal on Rosa, as well as getting a Cure 4 off to deal with the rest of your party. And in the first phase, it could become... Well, we're actually out of the first phase because Gargamus is casting Nuke.
Yeah, so we got that elixir off, so Rosa's MP is refilled. She should be good on MP from here. The issue will be, can you get the berserkers back up and firing again?
Yeah, this is where we're running into the attrition problems here. Flax is trying to take a little bit of a shortcut by casting Life 2, but Life 2 has a pretty beefy cast time, so we don't get that spell off. So not only does Kane not get rezzed, but Rosa is not going to get a cure off here in time, and this might be a reset here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's a chance that Rosa is going to survive this one. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Alright, so we'll see if Flax decides to try to get a little bit more experience here. Would like to see an anchor switch.
It looks like that's going to be a forfeit from Twisted Flax.
Okay, I mean, Flax played absolutely well. Made what looked to be the play of the race, doing that early Luca key. Nothing to be ashamed of here as far as play goes. Did a really good job, and I think we're gonna get him in here in short order.
Yeah, perfect seed for all those folks. Well, here we go. Here's Twisted Flax. GG on tough luck there on the Zeromus fight, Twisted.
Thank you very much, and GG to Wraith for the win.
So you made a fantastic play into the Luca Cave relatively early in the seed. You want to tell us about that? What you were thinking?
I was just thinking that I couldn't beat Dwarf at that moment. At least it didn't feel like I could. So, people like to leave Luca for late. It's a good way to try to work against the grain. So I ran for it. I figured I could reset pretty quickly out of it if it didn't turn out to be good. It was the Baron key. It really lucked out for me.
Yeah, it actually put you in a really, really nice position. You were actually the first person to know where everything was that you needed to do. Difference in the race came down to the grind options, or sort of lack thereof, for you. So what was your thought process there?
I mean, it's tough. When I didn't find any sirens, I was like, well, I didn't have anybody who could do the D machine, and I realized about 10 minutes after I cleared Dwarf Castle that, oh, that was a Tella. I could have done that. But by that time, I was already on the moon. It was way too late to go back. I think I just try to grind out some levels up there and hope for the best.
Yeah, I got a little unlucky with some of the life glitches, and a little unfortunate with your star veils running out at Bahamut there. And as Flurry said, Bimmy and Jimmy, the double red dragons there, were certainly not very kind to you either.
No, I mean, I think it shows just I don't have much experience trying to grind out the trap chests on the moon. It's something I definitely have to work on.
So what did you think about the I'm curious about what you thought about the early part of the seed a little bit. You had some really nice combat through the first areas, and you got to do again, per Flurry, the Rivers McCown special of doing all of Fabul in one shot. So did you feel good about your early routing in this as well?
Oh, I felt great about maybe about to an hour in. I felt like all my plays seemed to be working out just through dumb luck. I could do Fabul in one go. I was able to avoid some of the more the time sinks of a seed, and I was able to get into a go mode pretty early. But my bad choices on the grinding just caught up on me.
Yeah, your routing was absolutely amazing this seed. The early decision for Luka Key gave you a pretty solid lead, and it was really just grind difference. And we actually didn't even think about the possibility you had brought up of possibly going back to Mysidia to actually grab the Tellus, since in this flag that's a thing that can be done. And we actually didn't even think about that as a possibility. So yeah, like you played it really well. Like your routing decisions were solid. The fights, the two tougher fights that you guys kind of ran into, which were Yang at the Dwarf Castle. Mom Bomb was not kind either, and you guys both handled it really well.
Thank you very much.
Well, did you have any last words for the seed before we head on out here?
It's clear I have to work my grinding methods outside of just sirens. But thank you, both of you. Thank you for Poydrek for the restream. Thank you for Miranoko, and it's always a lot of fun, even when things don't work out your way.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You guys both put on a fantastic show, and as grinding, once the grind problem gets solved, you're gonna be up there with the best of them because you played that superbly. So I wouldn't worry about it. We got plenty of matches left in the Swiss and plenty of room to catch up there. So I appreciate you being on stream here, and look forward to seeing your next race.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
So with that, we're done for tonight. Yeah. Just wanted to get in there, I guess, say thank you to you for commentating with me tonight, Flurry.
Hey, you bet. It's a great time.
Special thanks to our restreamer, Podrak, and to our tracker, Miyarinoko, for hanging out with us tonight, as well as with all of you. And if you're still hankering for some more FF4 action, there's no more Fabul Gauntlet races tonight, but we are going to head over to Penguinator, who's doing some underground racing tonight. So go ahead and hang out there for some more high-level FF4 action.
Yep, and there will be Fabul Gauntlet matches abound over the course of the next few weeks. So there is going to be no shortage of tournament races over a few days. I believe we have, I want to say, 5 matches tomorrow or somewhere in the neighborhood of there. So be sure to check them out. And thanks for tuning in.
See you next race, everybody.